Hello everyone. So in this video we are going to discuss about the article 15 of the constitution. So let's start with the topic. So the definition of article 15 of the Indian constitution is the prohibition of discrimination on grounds of race, religion, caste, sex, place of birth. Okay, now what is the purpose of article 15? That is to prohibit discrimination by the state. Prohibition of discrimination, that is to prohibit what? Prohibit discrimination by the state. Okay, and to protect citizens from social exclusions. Article 15 permits affirmative actions for disadvantaged groups. Okay, now there are 6 clauses in article 15, so we will read one by one each clause and will try to get what was actually in each clause. So now the article 15 clause 1, it is stated that state shall not discriminate against any citizen. So first of all, who? The state shall not discriminate against any citizen. So basically it was given to whom? It was given to citizen of India only. Okay, and then it was written that on grounds only of race, religion, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. That is only. This you have to keep in mind, the word only. It's the grounds prohibited are religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth. The keyword that is only means the discrimination solely on these grounds are prohibited. Okay, that is means that reasonable classification on other grounds is allowed. Okay, means what is written there, that states will not discriminate against any citizen, that is the citizen of India, on grounds only. The keyword only means that the discrimination solely on these grounds are prohibited. Only on which grounds? Like race, religion, caste, sex, or place of birth, or any of them. Okay, and that's mean that the reasonable classification on other grounds is allowed now. So basically article 15 clause 1 applies against states only, state only, है ना. तो ये तो हो गया अपना article 15 clause 1. Now we will discuss about the article 15 clause 2. So article 15 clause 2 state that no citizen shall on the grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them be subject to any disability, liability, restriction, or condition with regards to, that is not citizen. That means it also given to citizen of India only, and basically it prohibits discrimination by state as well as private individual. What? It prohibits discrimination by state and private individuals as well on the grounds of what? Race, religion, caste, sex, place of birth. That is that no citizen shall suffer any type of disability, liability, restrictions, or conditions. With regards to what? With regards to, then there comes article 15 clause 2 subclause A and article 15 clause 2 subclause B. So subclause A में क्या है? With regards to access of shops, public restaurants, hotels or place of public entertainments. मतलब कि स्टेट या फिर कोई प्राइवेट इंडिविजुअल किसी भी सिटीजन को किसी भी प्रकार की डिसेबिलिटी या लाइबिलिटी या रिस्ट्रिक्शन से कंडीशन नहीं पुट कर सकता है कि वो किसी शॉप में ना जाने दे, या फिर किसी रेस्टोरेंट में खाना ना खाने दे, या किसी होटल में ना जाने दे. ठीक है. और वैसे ही आर्टिकल 15 क्लॉज 2 सब क्लॉज बी में जो है वही में दिया है विद रिगार्ड्स टू व्हाट? द यूज ऑफ बेल्स, टैंक, बाथिंग घाट, रोड्स, प्लेस ऑफ पब्लिक रिजॉर्ट मेंटेन होली और पार्टली आउट ऑफ स्टेट फंड. This is the line which you have to keep in mind, that maintain wholly or partly out of the state fund or dedicated to the use of what? General public. मतलब अगर कोई किसी का मतलब किसी ने मतलब कोई अपना रिजॉर्ट प्राइवेट बनाया है तो उसमें तो वो नहीं जाने देगा ना ऑब्वियस, बट पब्लिक रिजॉर्ट है या कोई टैंक है, रोड है, उन पे आप नॉर्मल जो सिटीजन है उनको आप नहीं रोक सकते उन पे जाने के लिए. ठीक है. तो ये तो हो गया हमारा आर्टिकल 15 क्लॉज 2. ठीक है. अब हम चलते हैं किस पे? हम चलते हैं अपने third, that is article 15 clause 3. Nothing in this article means article 15. Nothing in the article 15 shall prevent state from making any special provision for women and children. That is, it's sort of a discrimination. Like state may make special provision for women and special provisions for children because the objective is here is of welfare, protection, representation, empowerment. Like we have seen, for example, maternity benefit, reservation for women, free education schemes, child welfare laws, है ना. तो बेसिकली ये एक एक्सेप्शन है. किसके एक्सेप्शन है? अंडर आर्टिकल 15 क्लॉज 1 और क्लॉज 2 के. ठीक है, क्योंकि क्लॉज 1 और क्लॉज 2 में तो रिस्ट्रिक्शंस हैं स्टेट के ऊपर, बट यहाँ पे एक सॉर्ट ऑफ प्रोटेक्टिव डिस्क्रिमिनेशन दे रहा है. यहाँ पे पावर दे रहा है स्टेट को, दैट स्टेट मे मेक स्पेशल प्रोविजन फॉर वुमेन्स और चिल्ड्रंस. Okay, now we will read about the article 15 clause 4 of the constitution. So basically what was written there, that nothing in this article or in clause 2 of article 29, nothing in this article means article 15 and और क्या लिखा है, और in the clause 2 of article 29, clause 2 of the shall prevent state from making any special provision for the advancement of any socially and educationally backward class of citizens or for SCs or for STs. So basically this clause was not there in the original part. Later through it was added by the first constitutional amendment act of 1951. What basically happened that the state can make special provision for socially educationally backward class and SCs and for STs. The purpose here is to socially uplift these peoples and the purpose here is educational advancement of these groups, like the social upliftment or reservation policies. Okay, now we will read about the article 15 clause 5 of the constitution. And it was also like nothing in this article, that is article 15, or in subclause G of clause 1 of article 19 shall prevent state from making any special provision by law for the advancement of any socially education backward class of citizens, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, insofar as such special provision related to their admission in the education institution, including the private education institution, whether aided or unaided by the state, other than the minority education institution referred in the clause 1 of article 30. That is, it was also added by the 93rd Constitutional Amendment Act in 2005. Because the state may provide reservation in government education institutions, aided institutions, unaided private aided institution or unaided private. The state may provide reservation in government education institutions as well as private institution, whether aided or unaided. The beneficiaries are the socially educationally backward class, scheduled class and scheduled tribes. But there is an exception. The exception is that the minority education are exempted. They are protected under article 30 clause 1. Okay, now we will read the article 15 clause 6, the clause 6 of the article 15. Okay, it was added by the 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act in 2019. Okay, now we will read it. Nothing in this article or subclause, nothing in this article, that is article 15, or subclause G of the 19 or subclause G of the article 19 or clause 2 of article 29 shall prevent state from making what? Any special provision for advancement of any economically weaker sections of citizens other than the class mentioned in the clause 4 and 5, and any special provision for the advancement of EWS citizen other than the mentioned in the 4 and 5, insofar as such special provision related to the admission to the education institution, included what? Private education institution, whether aided or unaided by the state, other than the mandatory education institution referred in the clause 1 of the article 15, which in the case of reservation would be added to the existing reservation and subjected to the maximum 10 of the total seat in each category. That is, what does it basically the article 15 clause 6 want to say here? Basically, it was added by the 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act 2019. So the beneficiaries are economically weaker sections, and the article 15 clause 6 subclause A, it provides for special provision for the advancement of EWS citizens, and the article 15 clause 6 subclause B seeks about the reservation in education institutions, government institutions, private institution, aided, unaided institution, and the reservation limit, like the reservation limit is also given there, that is maximum 10%. additional to the existing reservation which was already present there. And there was also an exception is minority education institution under article 30 clause 1. So the explanation, there was an explanation also given there in article 15 clause 6 that EWS determined by the family income, asset and other indicators of economic disadvantage. The criteria for these are notified by the state or the government. Okay, so the objective of the article 15 is that it seeks to eliminate social discriminations and it ensures equal treatments and it protects what? Human dignity. So now we will see each clause. Okay. So under article 15 clause 1, there it is written that the state shall not discriminate against any citizen on the grounds only of what? Race, religion, caste, sex, place of birth. ठीक है. So under article 15 clause 1 it was written that the state shall not discriminate against any citizen on the grounds only of what? Race, religion, caste, sex, place of birth. That is, there is sort of a restriction over the state that you do not have to discriminate, that the state shall not discriminate against any citizen. It was basically given to citizens only. That is, article 15 clause 1 put some restriction over the state that you should not discriminate on the grounds only. That स्टेट आप इन ग्राउंड्स के ऊपर डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं कर सकते, किन ग्राउंड्स के ऊपर? रेस के ऊपर, रिलीजन के ऊपर, कास्ट, सेक्स और प्लेस बर्थ के ऊपर. और नाउ आर्टिकल 15 क्लॉज 2, दैट इज नाउ आर्टिकल 15 क्लॉज 2 बेसिकली इट अप्लाइज अगेंस्ट स्टेट एज वेल एज प्राइवेट इंडिविजुअल. तो आर्टिकल 15 क्लॉज 2 किसके अगेंस्ट है? इट अप्लाइज अगेंस्ट होम? स्टेट के भी और प्राइवेट इंडिविजुअल के भी. ठीक है, private individual, that it applies against state and private individual, so that there is no discrimination in no discrimination in what? In access to shops, restaurants, hotels or public entertainment, and there should be no discrimination in the use of what? Wells, tanks, bathing ghats, roads, public resorts. आर्टिकल जो बेसिकली आर्टिकल 15 क्लॉज 2 अप्लाई होता है किन के अगेंस्ट? स्टेट के अगेंस्ट भी और प्राइवेट इंडिविजुअल के अगेंस्ट भी. बेसिकली ये कहता है कि आप किसी प्रकार की डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं कर सकते इन एक्सेस टू शॉप, रेस्टोरेंट और पब्लिक प्लेसेस पे आप किसी प्रकार की रिस्ट्रिक्शन नहीं करते. और ये दोनों के ऊपर लगा है, दैट इज स्टेट और प्राइवेट इंडिविजुअल. मतलब स्टेट भी नहीं कर सकता किसी प्रकार की डिस्क्रिमिनेशन और प्राइवेट इंडिविजुअल भी नहीं कर सकता. ठीक है. नाउ द आर्टिकल 15 क्लॉज 3, दैट इज इट इज सॉर्ट ऑफ अ प्रोटेक्टिव डिस्क्रिमिनेशन. जैसे कि बिकॉज इट अलाउ फॉर व्हाट? स्पेशल प्रोविजंस फॉर whom? फॉर वुमेन्स एंड स्पेशल प्रोविजंस फॉर whom? वुमेन्स एंड चिल्ड्रंस. ठीक है. तभी तो आप देखते हो ना बहुत सारे बेनिफिट्स दिए जाते हैं, जैसे कि मैटरनिटी बेनिफिट, सॉर्ट ऑफ रिजर्वेशन या फिर चाइल्ड लेबर प्रोहिबिशन. तो ये सब कहाँ से आते हैं? आर्टिकल 15 क्लॉज 3 से. बेसिकली इट प्रोवाइड सॉर्ट ऑफ प्रोटेक्टिव डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नाउ एंड बेसिकली दिस. तो बेसिकली आर्टिकल 15 क्लॉज 3 इस एक्सेप्शन टू आर्टिकल 15 क्लॉज 1 एंड क्लॉज 2. ठीक है. क्यों? क्योंकि 1 में स्टेट पे प्रोहिबिशन लगाई जाती हैं कि वो किसी प्रकार के डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं करेगा किन बेसिस पे? रेस, रिलीजन, कास्ट, सेक्स, प्लेस ऑफ बर्थ पे. 15(2) में भी सॉर्ट ऑफ डिस्क्रिमिनेशन, सॉर्ट ऑफ रिस्ट्रिक्शंस लगाई जाती हैं किसके ऊपर? स्टेट और प्राइवेट इंडिविजुअल के ऊपर कि वो किसी प्रकार के डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं करेंगे. तो इसलिए आर्टिकल 15 क्लॉज 3 लाया गया, जिसमें कि जो कि मतलब कि एक सॉर्ट ऑफ प्रोटेक्टिव डिस्क्रिमिनेशन है दैट प्रोवाइड फॉर स्पेशल प्रोविजन फॉर वुमेन्स एंड चिल्ड्रंस. ओके. Now article 15 clause 4. So basically article 15 clause 4 it was added. It was not there in the original constitution or original article 15, but it was added when? Added through the first constitutional amendment act, and the case was Champakan Dorai Rajan case, that it also seek for special provisions for whom? For socially education backward classes and scheduled caste, scheduled tribes. Okay, so Article 15 Clause 4 also seeks for a special provision for whom? For socially education backward classes, scheduled caste, scheduled tribes. Now we will see Article Clause 5. That is, it was basically added. It was also added through what? 93rd Constitutional Amendment Act. It was in 2005, and the famous case is TMA Pi case. That is reservation in education institution, to provide reservation to backward classes in education institutions. So for reservation in education institutions. Okay, for what type of education institution? Like government institutions, okay, private aided institution and private unaided institutions, both. Okay, but there is sort of, but there was an exception is minority education institution. Minority education institutions. Now Article 15 clause, that is, it was also added to 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act, that was in 2019. It provide for EWS reservation, economically weaker sections reservations. So that is in education institution, Article 15 through, that is, it seeks to provide EWS reservation, reservation in education institution. Okay, and it seeks for maximum what? 10% reservation. Okay.